Hey, what's up? It's Jake, and I'm learning Kubernetes. So I wanted to take a second to talk about security. I'm currently trying to refactor my application so that it pulls my container images down from Google Artifact Repository instead of Docker Hub with public images or something like that. So then came the question of how do I authenticate? Well, if you're a user, you just use your Docker auth and you can log in that way. But my Kubernetes cluster isn't a user and doesn't have an interactive session with which to do that. So aside from using like a regular username and password, the next solution is to use a service account. Google service accounts can create a JWC and you can use that JSON file to authenticate like a key as if it were a password. This is an older way of doing things and it is probably a common way of doing things right now. However, the majority of organizations have moved on to Workload Identity Federation, which is what Google recommends. If you start here with workloads, essentially your application is going to try to authenticate with a service account into Google Cloud. The service account is going to say, hey, you need to go to an identity provider to prove who you are. So essentially what it does is it goes to the security token service, checks out an identity from the pool, which is validated by the identity provider, and then provides access to a service account, and then the service account's permissions give it access to whatever various Google Cloud resources the service account has access to. So how do normal people do this? Well, I don't have an identity provider and I don't want to pay money for an identity provider, and there's no real way to do that without paying money. One option is you can use a service account with a JWC and just know that it's not the best practice, but as a home lab type person or somebody who's just trying to play with Kubernetes, it's better than trying to use Docker auth or some kind of other method. It's really the only method, the only choice you have. I'm going to be looking into Keycloak. So here you can see Keycloak is an open source identity and access management tool that adds authentication to applications and secure services with minimal effort. Yeah, we'll see about that. So if I go to the guide, we can look at how you get started. There's a Kubernetes section. Ultimately, this is a little bit outside of my skill set right now, so I'm gonna have to come back to this because every time I start branching off into Kubernetes world, I start of like going down this rabbit hole where I'm looking at security or I'm looking at deployments or I'm looking at services or whatever, and I just keep having to tell myself reel it back, follow the process, go through my steps, and I will get there. So if you have any recommendations for using identity providers in a home lab style Kubernetes cluster, let me know. I'm not running anything crazy in the cloud right now just yet, but if I were to do this with GCP, um, what kind of identity provider solution would you use? Let me know in the comments. So that's it. Merry Christmas. My name is Jake, and I'm learning Kubernetes.